Clear prop.
Star 73, Yankee number 2, following twin traffic, 3 mile final, clear Pleasantville. 1 Charlie Bravo, exit in runway 25, going 4 mile final.
This is Behind the Prop with United Flight Systems owner and licensed pilot Bobby Doss and his co-host, Major Airline Captain and designated pilot examiner Wally Mulhern. Now let's go Behind the Prop.
What's up, Wally?
Hey, Bobby, how are you?
I am fantastic. This is episode 99. If you're listening on Monday or sometime this week, next week will be our 100th episode. We got a number of really cool things planned and a few announcements to make as we turn that chapter over and make it into our 100th episode. So tune in next week for some of those things for sure. This week is all about what's next in flying. We hear this all the time, Wally. I hear it all the time at the flight school. You hear it all the time in your check rides. We had a listener named Luis reach out and share his story, and he was a gentleman that learned later in life, much like I didn't start flying till 40s and 50s, and got his private pilot certificate, built some time, got his instrument rating because he knew he needed it and wanted it, and now he's asking the question, really, what's next? But more importantly, does the commercial make sense? I mean, he doesn't want to be a professional pilot, doesn't plan on career changing. And the big question is, does the commercial rating make sense for him? And we're going to talk about that, but there's so many things that aviators can do. I talked to brand new 0-hour pilots, had one in my office earlier today. And the question is always, I think I want to do this, but what about these other things, right? How many type ratings and seaplane add-ons and all that stuff do you have on your pilot certificate?
Well, 727, 737, 57, 67, 777. So the 57, 67 is a single type, so 4 type ratings. And a seaplane rating. I would say that the vast majority of my applicants fit into one of 3 buckets. It's either and I say a young kid. Anybody less than maybe 25 years old, in my opinion, is a young kid. Okay, so a young person who is pursuing a career in aviation. That's one of the 3 buckets. The second bucket is the 30-something-year-old who might be a IT person, an accountant, a paramedic, and they're looking for a career change. So that's the second bucket. The third bucket is the 50-some-odd-year-old individual who now who has always wanted to fly. As a kid, they looked up and watched all the airplanes fly over, but now they have the time because maybe their kids are grown and they're not going to soccer games on Saturday mornings. They have the time and they have the resources. They basically have the money to learn to fly. I would say 90% of my applicants fit into one of those 3 buckets. So the one we're talking about today is the person who probably the third bucket that we're talking about, somebody who doesn't really have aspirations to fly professionally, but they come out and they work, they get their private pilot certificate, and they enjoy the vibe of the flight school. They enjoy the vibe of hanging out at the airport. Most of us like being here. So they, after they're private, of course, they hear everybody talking about their instrument rating. Well, to me, I think to everybody, getting an instrument rating is a no-brainer. I mean, why would you not do that? Why would you not try to up your game and pursue an instrument rating? There's no total time requirement for an instrument rating. There is 40 hours of simulated instrument time, and some of that can be done in a simulator, so it's not as costly as it may sound. But there's just no downside to getting instrument rating. I mean, first of all, it makes you a better pilot. Second of all, if you're buying any type of an insurance, whether it's your own airplane or renter's insurance or whatever, you're probably going to get a break on your renter's insurance, which again, not that big a deal, but there are incentives. I think everybody can see that, the advantage of getting instrument rating. Okay, so now you got your instrument rating. You're you're maybe a couple years away from retirement, but you still like you want to learn. Now what? And that's the question. And the question that the listener brought up is it worthwhile to get my commercial pilot certificate? And I gotta, as I thought about that, I went back and forth. I waffled. I went, yeah, no, yes, no, yes, no. And I mean, I think the short answer could be, well, why not? If you enjoy, if you enjoy learning, you enjoy, the more you put your head in the book. I mean, it sounds boring, but the more you study, just the better you are. You're a better pilot. There are certain maneuvers that will be introduced to you as a commercial candidate. You'll do chandelles, lazy eights, power off 180s. You'll do some maneuvers that you haven't seen as a private pilot, but you will also go back and revisit some of those maneuvers, and the tolerances are stricter. So now we do steep turns, but we use more than 45 degrees of bank. We're up to 55 degrees of bank. And the tolerances are tighter. You're doing all the landings, so you're going back and you're revisiting short field, soft field landings and takeoffs. The big one is the power off 180. It's a new maneuver. So I would say, yeah, why not? Why not? What's it? And the other thing about it is you're probably going to be working with another flight instructor. And just the more you can expose yourself to other pilots. I mean, great athletes probably, a great quarterback probably in his younger years studied a lot of film of other great quarterbacks. And, that's kind of what you get to do when you come out and you say, I'm going to pursue a higher rating or a higher certificate level. You get to see that.
For me personally, it was a little bit more coincidental. I mean, yes, I wanted to keep working on it and keep getting better as a pilot, but I really was looking at my logbook and I had about 235 hours. I was around aviation quite a bit because I did buy a flight school at the time, and I thought really all I got to do is learn the maneuvers, take a written exam, and I get another certificate. There was some easiness to that, right? If we don't think of the professional student who's trying to go back to back to back to back to back, if you're flying a lot, you might have a lot of the requirements done if you have an instrument rating.
Yeah.
If you fly in instrument conditions, you probably don't need a whole lot of dual instruction. And you might have done some of the big, long cross-country things that you have to do in your normal flying. What you might have done all the nighttime stuff. There really might not be that much stuff that you need. You probably got all the pilot and command time, and so then you're like, okay, well, how much better do I have to be at controlling this aircraft to be able to do these maneuvers? And man, lazy eights, I learned a lot about the performance of an aircraft. Chandelles, I learned a lot about what's really possible. And I think I really, really started to understand left turning tendencies, because a chandelle to the left is really easy and a chandelle to the right is not as easy.
Yep.
Why is the one to the left so much easier? Well, the plane wants to turn left.
Yeah.
And so it really started making sense. And I looked back then and thought, well, golly, turns around a point to the left would have been easier. And I think I always did them to the right so I could see more. It starts making more sense about everything. And you realize, I also think about the pattern. I flew a lot of right pattern, but a left pattern is a little easier than right pattern because of left turning tendencies. I don't think I ever thought about that when I was a private pilot learning how to fly.
Right.
I felt that just felt weird to go a different direction, not that the plane was not wanting to turn that direction. So the commercial became kind of happenstance for me because I was already done with so many of the maneuvers. I think I had to do one long cross country, the big one, and then get pretty proficient in the maneuvers and the power off 180s. And then for me, it was more about after that one, what's next.
Right.
I didn't have the multi-engine time. I definitely didn't have the book smarts to become a CFI. And I think Luis is asking us the same thing: is a commercial like a bachelor's degree and a CFI like a master's degree and an ATP like a PhD? Are they those levels of training? And similar, but I really think in our world, what Wally and I talk about often is the gold standard really is that CFI.
Absolutely.
That's the PhD. And the reason for that is because you have to learn how to teach all the material.
Yeah. And
if you love aviation and you learn how to teach aviation stuff, you're going to have a million opportunities to be involved in aviation stuff. And if that's not the next right path, we'll come back to the gold standard of being a flight instructor. What about all the other stuff? We've had glider people on the show talking about all the experiences that you could learn and become a much better stick and rudder person by trying to fly something that has no power, no thrust. It's just got wings, and you got to fly from point A to point B and land that thing. That would be very interesting.
Yeah.
I've never pulled a speed brake, but I could pull a speed brake if I got my glider rating. And surely be a better pilot. You said seaplane. I'm interested. We're having a little drought here in the southern part of Texas right now, so our sea lane is closed at the moment because it's not got enough water in it. Somebody said you could see pipes down there in the water, so I don't think that would be where I'd want to fly or land. But a seaplane rating would be fun. It would. You got yours in Alaska, I think.
Yeah, I did up in Fairbanks. I just think, those of you who have listened to many episodes know that one of my other passions is being a musician. I'm a drummer, and would going out and taking trumpet lessons make me a better drummer? It would. Anything that I can do to expand my musical abilities is going to affect my ability to be a good drummer, and that's the way it is, I think, in aviation. I mean, I learned a whole lot about flying when I got my seaplane rating. It was before I was an examiner, and the guy up in Alaska was just on me all the time about keeping the ball centered. My excuse was, well, we don't even have one of those in a 737. And he just kept laughing at me, and he was on me about flying that airplane coordinated because it was in a 172. And 172 on floats doesn't perform really well. So we spent a lot of time in the climb, so I had to stomp on that right rudder a lot. But it was really good for me because at the time I was a very experienced airline pilot who hadn't flown single engine airplanes in a long time, and it made me a better pilot. It definitely made me a better pilot. The thing about something like that, I mean, you can go out and you can get a tail wheel endorsement, but something like that, flying a seaplane it's seat of the pants. I mean, it is, where I instrument flying to me is a lot procedural. Okay, I'm going to go fly this approach. Well, how do I load it up in my navigation system and all that kind of stuff? So it is kind of procedural, but flying a tailwheel airplane or flying a seaplane, it's just a lot of seat of the pants flying, which to me is just a blast.
I don't have my tailwheel endorsement either, but I hear everyone that has it, they really love to fly something slow and low and get that tail wheel time because it's just peaceful flying. Open windows in a Cub flying somewhere sure seems exciting, but I just haven't been able to get that one knocked out yet. What other? Obviously, we talked about CFI, CF double I's out there, multi-engine instructors out there, multi-engine ratings out there. I've said it many times on the show. I don't think I became a really, really good pilot until I got my multi-engine rating, and that was because I just didn't understand the physics of what all was going on until there were two engines, and they rotated the same way, and I had a critical engine, and really started understanding what the slipstream was doing, and really understood what was happening when one engine failed versus another engine. And I think more than anything, it made the takeoff briefing become real to me.
Yeah.
You're going to get really hurt in a twin below 500 feet if you lose an engine, and you're not ready for it. You're in real trouble. So what do we do every time we take off? We get really ready for it. We talk about it a lot, I think, in single engines. What are we going to do if the engine fails? We coming back, going forward? Are we going to stop and land on the runway? We talk about it, but the risk, while great, is not as big of a risk of being below blue line and losing rudder authority. That one's going to kill you.
Yeah, and the false sense of security of having that second engine in a multi-engine airplane can get you in trouble. My first job in aviation was working as a lineman at a FBO up in Monroe, Louisiana, that actually we did pipeline patrol. And I can remember coming in, and one of the pilots coming in one day, his name is Dennis, and we were talking, and I'm filling the airplane up with fuel, and I said, man, it's just got to be nerve-wracking to fly 8 hours a day down at 400 feet. And his comment was, at that altitude, it's actually easy because there are no decisions to be made. If you lose an engine, you're going straight ahead, and you don't. So there's no decision making. That's where people get in trouble in a twin engine airplane. Is, do I go or do I not go?
Right.
Essentially, making that decision. So, and the other thing is weight and balance is so much more critical in a multi-engine airplane. I believed it when I got all my single engine ratings. Okay, yeah, we need to be within this weight limit, and we need to fit within the center of gravity box somewhere. Okay, well, suppose we are a little bit aft of the box. I mean, obviously you don't want to, you're not gonna fly like that, but in a multi-engine airplane we can do the geometry, and we can see that that single engine safety speed is no good if we're out of the box.
Yep.
So,
and I think that those things make you realize that while you might not have to do weight and balance in a Cessna with two grown men in it that aren't 400 pounds each, that you don't think that in a twin. You really start thinking, and I think that's why I was a better pilot. So you might not plan on using it. I don't use mine very often, but the multi-engine rating is something that's bite-size, I guess, almost. If you can find a good twin in a good school, you're probably done in 10 hours or so, and you become a much, much better pilot. So maybe it is a multi. And if you do that, might as well get your commercial first, so you have commercial, multi, instrument all wrapped in one.
Right.
Which I think, in the grand scheme of things, if you love aviation and you want to be around aviation, that alone, forget instructor for a second, that alone is going to open you up to many, many other opportunities. You're going to have other people requesting you to join them in flights that you wouldn't get asked to do if you've only flown a 182. I would say something like I got asked to fly a pretty big jet recently, and a good friend, single pilot aircraft, who he wanted another set of eyes with him. And I got to fly something I never thought I'd get to fly, and an experience that was amazing. And those sorts of things might present themselves to you. You might get, if you're multi-engine, you might get to get asked by someone. I know a few people that own twins who they're lucky, and they don't want to fly alone. Not that they're scared, but they know how valuable that seat next to them is, and for them to fly with it open, they feel like they're taking something from someone. I feel the same way when I fly the 182. Like, why would I not ask someone to come with me if I don't need that seat, right? So take someone. You might be the person that you're taking with somewhere. You never know.
Yeah. You know, I on my bucket list, I have a couple of ratings. I would love to get a multi-engine seaplane rating. There aren't too many multi-engine seaplane airplanes around. I think there's a flight school down in Florida that does that, but I'd love to do that. I would love to get my glider rating, and you know, it's just going to make me a better pilot. The other thing I would like to do, and this is certainly on my bucket list, this is probably number one, I'd love to go up to Alaska and do a bush flying course. I mean, it's not certainly not a rating and not even an endorsement, but I would love to go up there and do some off-airport landings. And I think there's some schools up in Idaho, up in the the mountainous areas. Another thing is a mountain flying course. I mean, I know there are places out in Colorado that offer that. We're down here, Flatlanders. We don't really have to worry about that, but it just has to make you a better pilot.
No question. You want to be one of those people that can land like in 3 feet in that bush plane,
Yeah.
The short landing contests where they literally 12 guys land inside of 3 feet. And then they take right back off and they don't move much either. That does look like fun flying for sure. What kind of demand is there for a multi-engine seaplane pilot?
I don't think there's much demand at all, but that's part of the fun of it. It's
one in about 3,000 of them in the world.
Yeah.
Well, we had the chief pilot from Goodyear on, which was an early on show, and it was a very interesting conversation talking to a blimp pilot and his experiences. I think my bucket list would probably have a rotor on it somewhere. I'd love to be a helicopter pilot.
Yeah.
I've always been fascinated that those things can even stay in the air. And the fact that they can land with no power is even more interesting and exciting to me. It doesn't look very appealing to do the power off landings in those in a helicopter, but I'm sure once I understood the physics, I would appreciate it and want to get proficient in it. So there's tons and tons of things to do that'll make you better. But to Luis's very specific question, is the commercial worth it? I think I'm not just on the side of why not. I'm on the side of, if you want to fly and you're going to have precious cargo like your family in the plane, why not become a commercial pilot as well? Why not learn those maneuvers, learn what you're capable of, get to that proficiency level, and then possibly get some other opportunities that may make you some money. You might be allowed to make some money then, but you get the chance to get those offers that you weren't going to get before anyway.
Yeah. And as we're sitting here, I pulled this up. I just realized there is a multi-engine seaplane for sale just a couple miles from here up in Conroe. It's a 1954 Grumman Albatross. I think it's an Albatross. It's a HU-16 for $400,000 if anybody's interested in that. But that looks like that airplane would be a blast to fly.
That would be neat.
A flying boat.
Well, that'd be a big boat too. That one would for sure. What horsepower do those engines have on that thing?
I don't know. I'm not sure.
I bet they're pretty big. You talk about a 172 not performing well with floats. A light twin with floats ain't going to perform very good either. Blue Line's going to be a pretty big number, I would suspect. For sure.
I would think so.
So we didn't talk about these, but the other things are the high performance endorsement, the complex endorsement. Those things kind of happen more when you get to that commercial level. If you don't have those, by all means, seek those out. Many, 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 many moons ago at United Flight Systems, they had a hot air balloon, and they would let people get their balloon certificate as an instructor and let people take rides in a hot air balloon. that seems interesting. I don't know that I would ever want to command a hot air balloon by myself. Seems a little bit out of control, but
Yeah.
it sure does look peaceful when you see a bunch of balloons floating across the sky.
Yeah.
Somebody's got to do it. If you really love aviation, maybe that's one for you to try as well. But let's talk about instructors. Why do we think that the instructor's the gold seal? It really is the PhD. Even some ATPs that maybe weren't instructors, they maybe came through the military. They know a lot about aviation. They know a lot about the plane they fly. But to be a teacher of a topic, whatever that topic might be. My previous life, I was in technology. When people ask me a technology question, I'm pretty good at explaining it to them because I taught a lot of that technology. I still like to teach. I look forward to finishing my certificate one day, but you're just that much better. You know a lot about the subject. We probably know a lot as a commercial pilot, but to teach it, to try and give the structure by which you have an objective and you have completion standards. On top of that, you've learned the fundamentals of instruction that give you that, and then you teach someone to get to that completion standard, whether it's the book knowledge or whether it's the actual flying stick and rudder knowledge. That's got to be where you're the best you can possibly be.
Without a doubt. I mean, I got to witness this firsthand with my daughter. We last summer were working on her commercial certificate, and I was her instructor. We went out, we did all the maneuvers, and she could do all the maneuvers just fine. And I would ask her to explain them to me, and she would. But whether she did or not, I don't know. But she just recently got her CFI probably 3 months ago or so. And, man, you talk about light bulb moments, because now she's really explaining it to me. And I don't know if it was just a confidence level or what, but I feel like you really don't know how to do it until you teach it.
Yep.
And, and I've taken that to that level with my airline career. I've been a check airman on every airplane I've flown at my airline, and just recently interviewed to be a check airman on the 777, and I actually do some training in a couple of weeks to do that. So I'll be teaching that. And one reason for me was you just know it so much better when you're teaching it.
Yep.
First of all, you hold yourself to a higher standard, I think, because boy, you don't want your student to ask you a question that you don't know the answer to. You can only say, well, why don't we look it up, so many times. So
the reality is, forget again CFI. Just talk about all the things that we do. When you've had to teach it, and maybe you don't even want to be a CFI, but you incorporate the thought process of teaching others, become a volunteer, do something, go work at a museum, an aircraft museum, an aviation museum of some sort. When you answer the questions that people are asking you all day, you're much better at delivering the content and the information. As a flight instructor, I look forward to the day where I see students having those light bulb moments. I had this rare opportunity recently in our full motion simulator. Someone was struggling with shooting an approach, and I'm not an instructor yet, but I am a proficient instrument pilot, and I just saw them overcorrecting. And there's not a pilot handbook of aeronautical knowledge that says this is how you prevent someone from overcorrecting. You've got to have a little of your own technique. What stumbling blocks did you work through to be able to do it? And I just told him, I said, quit looking at the attitude indicator. Like, he kept trying to get that thing, I think, to not rock, and the heading indicator to stay closer to the number he was trying to stay on. But it was just a big S turn was all it really was.
Yeah.
And he couldn't figure out, and he wouldn't stop looking at him. So I just covered him up. I said, we're going to fly. This was in a simulator, everyone. We're going to fly, and you're only allowed to look at the turn coordinator, because you don't realize how much rate of turn you have every time you turn this aircraft by using the yoke. Let's just fly with the turn coordinator. Everything got smooth.
yeah,
The altitude stayed the same. Our course stayed on track. He didn't even have to know what the heading said. We weren't turning away from it anymore. And it was just this aha moment that he realized, and he's been flying for a long time. And he said, I've heard this 1,000 times, but for whatever reason, settling on the turn coordinator made me calm down and focus on just flying straight and level. And it was a light bulb moment where he shot the ILS like 3 times after that, looking at everything in a different way. And I look forward to, as an instructor, doing that. But that is what instructing is. So, Lewis, go out there and get your commercial rating, and then add on a CFI, maybe add on a CFII. If you want to get your multi, come see me. But that is the gold standard for sure. Those aha moments, and giving those aha moments really is what will make you the aviator that I think we all want to be, for sure.
Yeah.
Anything else to add, Wally?
No, I don't think so.
All right, everyone. This is number 99. Wally and I have done this in my office probably 90 of those times. We are almost to 100. We're excited about it, and we can't wait to share some stuff with you all next week. As always, fly safely and stay behind the prop.
Thanks for checking out the Behind the Prop podcast. Be sure to click subscribe and check us out online at BehindTheProp.com. Behind the Prop is recorded in Houston, Texas. Creator and host is Bobby Doss. Co-host is Wally Mulhern. The show is for entertainment purposes only and is not meant to replace actual flight instruction. Thanks for listening, and remember, fly safe.